My name's Eli Delaney, and I have the honor of meeting some pretty cool people. These are the entrepreneurs, the artists, the creatives, the game changers that are making a positive impact in the people that they meet. And I'm a firm believer that the people that you meet can get you anywhere you want to go. And this show is my way of sharing them with you. It's my way of also helping you meet cool people. All right, welcome back to another show. Eli here, and today we have Kinga Vajda, and she and I had the pleasure to meet at a live event in Dallas several months ago. I don't remember how long ago it was, and hit it off immediately. Right after that, she and I ended up booking a virtual coffee. She's down in the Austin area, and we talked for like 3 hours, which is like, okay, fast friends, everything's cool. She's going to come on the show. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about her and then bring her in. She is a strategic innovator and agile advisor. She helps leaders envision and achieve impactful change with straight talk and actionable strategies. With extensive experience in change management, executive coaching, and program management, she provides tactical tools, systems thinking, which I'm all about, to navigate complex challenges. And if you haven't followed her on LinkedIn, you'll definitely want to do that after the show because she has some of the coolest posts with the most engaging stuff in there. So with that said, Kinga, thanks for coming and joining today.
Hi, thank you so much. I really appreciate that warm welcome. That was a marathon phone call, wasn't it? And as a matter of fact, I think we had a follow-up.
We did. I mean, we've talked in a couple of different areas, but that one was just one of those. It's like, okay, well, we met at this event. We should have a virtual coffee, and we ended up talking. And both of us was like, "Do you have to go?" Oh no. So this was my last call for the day. And next thing you know, is like I finally had to go because my stomach was eating itself, and I'm like, okay, yeah, it's time for dinner now. But yeah, we had such a great time, and I love it when I can meet somebody that just instantly we click. And before we started, we were talking about people that we click with like that. You had listened to the episode of the MeetCoolPEople with Tom's Keenan on there, and you said that you enjoyed the stuff on there. And I was like, he was another one I just had that connection with. And one of the things that I love about it is that not only do we just have a cool connection, but you're a systems person. You think in processes and stuff like that. So tell us a little bit more about what you do with your clients and how did you get started on this fun journey that you're on?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. It's interesting because a lot of people that I meet, they see that I love to talk about community a lot. And so they kind of assume that I'm just a coach. And I'm very specific that I'm actually an advisor and an educator. And I have a background in project management. I started Agile coaching about 20 years ago in software industry. So a long time ago when I first was working with software development teams, we were doing waterfall method, which is where we're handed requirements and we're trying to get the teams to take this large set of requirements, rally around a goal, and really they were kind of just pitted against each other. And nothing about it felt right. And so while I was working in this work environment, I thought, really, the way that we get things done, just like in any kind of capacity, is to understand a goal and get a group of people to work together, leverage each other's strengths, and make the best of it. And meanwhile, our leadership teams were struggling with communicating exactly how to break these goals down. And at the same time, I happened to be at the right time and right place where this company was getting ready to go public. So it was a really exciting time. Agile was a new thing. I got to be the first person to run a product through this process. And I immediately raised my hand and was like, I want to lead the teams through how do we coordinate large groups of people? Because to me, it was just this giant puzzle of getting lots of people around these goals. And I just loved to see this peaceful harmony of getting groups and collaboratively solving complex problems and building transparency in a way that the leadership team felt comfortable in saying, okay, you guys got it. We're going to let it hand off and kind of let this really have autonomy. And it was through having some kind of rhythm and heartbeat of communication that was building predictability and transparency that we were able to do this. And it really forced actually the leadership teams to also become more transparent as well around what they were doing, because it forced those decision makers to understand what was happening and when we needed to elevate risks at the right time. So it really caused operational maturity within the organization. Then I started getting involved in mergers and acquisitions and just been through a lot of pivotal moments. So yeah, scaling and during those high change management times.
So let's back up a little bit, because I want people to understand. A lot of times we hear things like agile.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't really understand what that is, other than when you're in that corporate level, it's a term, and a lot of times I think a lot of people are using it just as a buzz term as opposed to actually knowing what it means either. Describe what that is. What is being an agile advisor, and what does that do from a standpoint of what is that position in coming in and helping manage the project?
Right. I agree with you that it's absolutely a buzzword, and I'm okay with that because I want to get the message out right now. And most people actually know what the word agile means. I mean, we've used it's not like a word that most of us didn't know, except for we've termed it or coined it as a buzzword. So now it feels like it has a much heavier meaning, and it doesn't. And honestly, if you think about it, being quick and nimble, right? We want to be kind of scrappy. And so many times we're frustrated by the bureaucracy of what we're trying to get done. And so, how exciting is this if we want to take away all of that bureaucracy, all that red tape so often that we have, and say, really, when it comes down to it, here's the assignment, here's the goal. Grab your tribe, grab your group of friends, and solve this problem. And we want that autonomy. We want that. And so that's a lot of what I was coaching on. Now, of course, we can't always be that flexible. There were some constraints, and there are some ways that we want to create predictability and work with the same group of people so we get to know each other. We can't always pick exactly who we're going to be working with. But there are ways that we can take and leverage the group that we're working with and really make the best of it. And so it was leveraging these concepts and being able to take that kind of model and quickly adapt and pivot. And so when you have some of these principles, and there are some basic principles that are taught around, breaking things down into small chunks, making sure that things are time boxed. If you think about your commitments, it's a lot easier to commit to something that is time boxed within a week than if you're thinking about the next year. So just staying really super hyper focused, looking at it as a team goal rather than an individual goal, so that we're really leveling up everybody. And so it's more of a collective effort. And that is how together we become better. And together we stop creating bottlenecks of, hey, I'm just the expert at this one thing. Together as an entire group, we all get elevated, and overall the progress of the entire community exponentially starts to get better. So really, this is where you start to see rapid rates to start implementing some improvements. It's one of those exponential things that you see over time.
Got it. So I love the way you're describing that, and I think that I think that a lot of our audience are smaller businesses. They might have like 10 people and they don't think about this kind of stuff. And I think that one of the things I know you're dealing with much more bigger companies, corporations, things like that. But I think that the principles are something we need to look at across the board. As I know you're dealing with like CEOs and people that are just like, a lot of times they don't get it.
Oh, yeah.
What are some of the things that you explain to them how to get this, the snowball rolling of, we're going to look at this as a team and everybody's going to take their piece in it and work together in a more efficient manner? How do you get them to understand what it is, and how can we put this into a way for smaller businesses? Maybe they only have a couple of people, because I think it's still relevant for them just as much.
Absolutely. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
There was a couple that I know that is running a business, and they were complaining. And, one is working from home, the other one is going into an office, and they're kind of back office, front office kind of situation, and the communication is suffering. And so I was talking about how on an Agile team, we have something called a daily stand up. Now, it's just a communication tool where we would have, some kind of dashboard or a scrum board or whatever. But it's whether you take a bulletin board, it doesn't matter. You can have one virtual or not, but it's a common place, a single sourced place where a lot of people use Trello. It's a tool that's available online. There's multiple tools that you can use, a project management tool. But basically, you take these top level ideas of what you have as your common goals, and you say, okay, this is the topic. This is the, if we're going to focus on 3 things this week, what is our overall goal for the week? Let's break it down into 3 big ideas. And then what are the tasks that we actually have agreed we need to do to accomplish these goals? And let's make sure that they're moving from like not done to maybe a column of in progress to done. And so it's more about watching things kind of move and make progress on a daily basis than around who did what. So when there's just a lot of movement and a lot of tasks and a lot of chaos together, rather than trying to keep tabs on one another, you can kind of just claim a item, a to-do list, and just kind of move these tickets or these, some people use Post-it notes or whatever, but on a virtual board, it's really easy. And you're just more watching. They say, watch the eye on the prize, or watch the eye of the baton in a relay race. You're watching these things. You really care more about pulling the work to the finish line, rather than micromanaging the individuals. And so that's why this really brings about like a healthy culture. It allows people to feel like they aren't being micromanaged, because the people themselves, they will notice, hey, you're not picking up your weight. And they'll either check in on each other or ask each other, what can we do to help? And that kind of thing. So it's a way that people start to hold one another accountable and start talking about the agreements that they have and the capacity that they have, and getting to know each other's strengths and weaknesses better, because ultimately the people doing the work are going to understand so how much they can actually handle and what they can commit to. So it's something that just works out really well for anybody.
Yeah, I love that. And it's, I like the way you just described it, because, I'm used to project managers. I've used project management systems for forever, for as long as I can remember. And one of the things, even for my own projects, I have to break things down. It's like, okay, here's the steps, and then here's the tasks under those pieces to make sure I don't screw anything up. Like I'm always telling my clients, you need to document your own process, even if you are the entire team, because 2 things happen with that. Number one, you want to be prepared for when you bring somebody else in, because it makes your life a whole lot easier. It makes their life a whole lot easier because they know what the expectations are. They know what needs to be done. But the second thing is, we're human. We screw things up. If we don't have those checklists to go by, we're going to miss a step.
Yeah.
And so I love the fact that you're doing that. And it also, I see this as okay, as you're growing a team and maybe you've got 5 people that are doing different tasks in this one bigger project, you can see okay, who's responsible for each piece. I can go through and say, okay, well, this is the thing, this one thing I was supposed to do, and I checked it off because I got it done. And everybody else sees that, which is going to be more motivating for other people to be like, okay, well, I want to check mark too, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. But then on top of it, it makes it very easy as a staff member, whichever position you're in, to just know, oh yeah, here's the things I need to do.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, we as entrepreneurs, especially solopreneurs or small business owners, and as we're just growing, we have this amazing thing that we think that everybody working for us has, they can read our minds. And for some reason, we get really upset when they can't,
Oh,
and was like, we want it done, ABC. Well, if I want it done in ABC and you come back with XYZ, the question is, did I tell you I wanted ABC, or did I say I just want it done?
right.
And a lot of times, as the leader of the group, whether that's a manager or owner, whatever position that is, a lot of times they don't do that. And so I love this language. I love the stuff you're doing with it. And I know you're a very
Mhm.
visual person, so you're doing a lot of maps and stuff like that. I know, I mean, you posted something just a couple of days ago that I saw the map and I was like, I love this. I love the way this just puts things into a perspective everybody can see. So when somebody's coming into this situation, say for instance, I'm going to go back kind of at the fact, well, as a smaller business, what's that first step for people? What are the things that they should be doing, like out of the gate?
Mhm.
Okay, let's get this stuff rocking.
I love that you just brought up what does done look like? And I think that that is something that is missing from so many conversations. And I think it's a really important point. So I think that so often we have these expectations and we don't do our due diligence around that. Um, Deeper work around like what assumptions am I making when I put something out there? Like I know what I'm thinking when I say, build XYZ, but I'm making some assumptions here. And unless I really pressure test this with people and feel out what assumptions I might be making with my own bias or a past, experience, and unless I start kind of pushing people like, what do you think I mean by this? And seeing what their version of that looks like, then I don't know what assumptions they might be making. And so I think that where we begin is, well, one, we want to make sure that we have an agreement with people on how we're going to function, how we're going to operate, and then also around what it is that we actually want. So it's kind of twofold. It's the what, and it's the like how we're going to actually work together, and the why, like what we're building, and then this is the framework that we're working within, and the agreements, the operating agreements that I'm going like this, going, it's like the handshake agreements, those team norms, our code of conduct. It's we when we make commitments to one another, we show up in a certain way, we're going to honor that. And so I think that that's kind of where we want to start before we jump into going straight to that board of tasks. We want to say, first, we're going to have somebody who decides. We need decision makers who says what it is that we're actually going to be prioritizing. How do we make decisions? What are the ways that we prioritize things? In software development, they usually have somebody who is the product owner. It's based off of research, but in a small business, it might not be. It might be a couple, like in the example I was talking about, that they have to have a hard conversation around that. And so it's important that you're on the same page, because when you're halfway through what we call this sprint, this, week that you're trying to get all these things done, because you're saying you're kind of really wanting to time box things and say, we've decided that we're going to try to knock out all this stuff in a week, and we're going to do whatever it takes to try to get all this stuff stuff done in a week, and it's really this push that you're trying to do, like it's going to be really important that you're aligned around what does that actually look like? What does, when we say we've completed it, what is that end result going to, the finished product, the finished, end thing? What does it actually, what does done look like? And what does good look like? And what does bad look like? And if you can't write that down, and you can't have kind of a very clear conversation where you know that you and the rest of your team is well aligned around it, then who knows what those tasks should really look like, right? And so in order to be able to task it appropriately, you want to make sure that you have a very clear understanding of where you're headed.
I love it. And it's, you covered a couple of really things. I want to unbox a couple of things here. Number one is, I go back to the phrase, begin with the end in mind. It's like, what does done look like? That's what you said. And it's like, you know what? A lot of people don't actually explain that. And they don't even think about that for themselves.
Yeah.
It's like I get clients that, with the stuff that we do, building follow-up systems and all those pieces, like, oh, I want some emails to go out to talk about my new event coming up. Okay. When's the event?
Yeah.
What's the topic? What are they going to learn? I start asking all these questions. They're like, but I was like, no, I just want it done. No, well, these are the things we have to have in order to make that done, in order to make done actually done and usable,
Right.
And so I love that you brought that out, is like, okay, sit down. And this is something that I think that is great to do with a team, especially, if you have one or two people, start with that. And if you need to bring it out to a full team, if you got, like 5 people working with you, that's fine. But sit down and do like what you were saying, is sit down and write it out. What does this look like? Because then you can reverse engineer the process and figure out what those steps are and who's going to be the best person for that. Now, you talked about time boxing.
Mm-hmm.
I would like for you to break that down, because time management is one of those things so many people just plain honestly suck at, and they don't understand what the best way to deal with it for them. And we all know that there's not one, there isn't like one answer for everybody. However, when you're looking at a project, what are the things that people need to look at from a standpoint of, if you're time boxing, you're putting things, figuring out what the time's going to take to get things done. How do we make sure that everybody is also realistic? Because that's one of those things that a lot of times doesn't get talked about until everybody's already annoyed with each other. So I'd love for you to touch on what is time boxing and how do we stay away from that issue?
Yeah. So when you have a complex problem that you want to work on with a group of people, I think that time boxing can be really effective, because ultimately what you're trying to do is to have everybody break it down to a level that is manageable within a window where this group of people gets to know each other pretty well. And it's through, they've been, working together, they kind of understand this is what we can handle in, and I would suggest like a time frame that is cyclical. I personally find a week is pretty good. Some people think that, depending on what you have going on in your life, maybe I think a month is too long, because if you just think about kind of the psychology of a month, like you can't really picture what you're going to be doing 2 weeks from now, but I can picture the end of this week. I can kind of in my mind map that out. And so I know if I'm going to be on vacation, on Friday. I know that. And so you can kind of imagine your capacity. And when we talk about capacity, we have emotional capacity, we have physical capacity. There's things that are going on in our lives, and there's only so much we can handle. We have our schedules are blocked off. And so when you're making your commitments to the people around you, you have to be looking at what's right in your face and be realistic. And so here we have this work that's kind of been lined up, and we've kind of been refining it. We're understanding exactly what it takes to get it done. And the team or whoever you're working with is yourself, you're really getting a good understanding as you continue to kind of take a look at these requirements or things that you want to do in your to-do list. And finally the time has come to pick it up. And I think it's so important to go, okay, here I am, and it's Sunday night or whatever night you decide to do some quick planning, and you take a look at your week. If you're going on vacation, it's really important to let your team know, I'm going to be out, so count me out, which means we're going to, as a team, do a lot less. It's the responsible thing to do. And so the team or whoever you're working with would pull back the amount that they're wanting to pull in off of that backlog, off of that list of to-do items, right? And when we don't think that way, then that's when teams often overcommit, especially when they think out. When your timeline is long out, it's like, it'll even out. But if you don't think about that over time, those buffers get eaten up
Right.
really quickly.
Well, and you said a couple of really important things at that. Number one is your check-in points. I think that's one of the things that a lot of times, I mean, I'm a big advocate. I always tell this with my clients is that communication is the key, no matter where you are in the process. Doesn't matter what kind of business it doesn't, I mean, any kind of relationship, no matter what it is, communication is always the key. And I know a lot of times in businesses, if somebody starts falling behind, like, I've got 5 tasks and I'm supposed to have all 5 of them done by Friday, but I only got one done right now and it's Thursday midday, what happened? And I think that there's, fires happen, life happens, you're talking about, but what if you're going to be going on vacation? That communication is like, okay, I'm not going to get as much done today because I'm taking this time off for this thing, or, this fire happened and that put me behind. The reality is, as long as there's a legit reason for it, usually people are okay with it. And if there isn't, we got to figure out what the problem is. And the cool thing is, a lot of times, if there was a fire or something like that happen, people are like, okay, so what can I do to help you out? But if you don't communicate that to begin with, people don't have even the opportunity to see what that is. And I think that the fact you were talking about like a weekly check-in kind of thing is great with that, because that lets people know, okay, this is where we are, makes you accountable for showing up when you're supposed to, much better than, oh, wait a minute, it's been 3 weeks and now I got, 3 weeks worth of stuff that I got to do instead of the week's worth of stuff that I got to catch up on. And I like how you talk about that. It helps bring it down into what makes just a lot more sense and makes it easier. And it is all about the communication.
Yeah. I have to share a story because software developers can tend to be introverts. And
Really?
we
I
were,
didn't know that.
yeah, and we were working at one point with my old team on a weekly cadence. And so we actually recommend to meet daily. And we're talking, we specifically call it a stand up because we
Mm-hmm.
were like, look, it's quick, you're
Right.
standing. So this is not an intention of a meeting, this heavy meeting, right? And it's not intended. People would talk about their doctor's appointments or this and that. And I'm like, no, I'm not here to like check up on anybody. That's not what I'm interested in. I'm
Right.
here to make sure that the work is moving, right? Is anybody stuck? And so at one point, and this is early in the process, and they're like, I'm stuck. I'm really stuck. I don't know what to do. And everyone's like, oh, and I was like, well, can someone help this person? And the person standing next to him was like, I can. And I was like, okay, like this is why we need communication, right? Like
Right.
this, I guess the point of this meeting is well served, right? We're on the same team. So often we forget, like, we're all on the same team, right? Right. And you think about, we hear, break down the silos, break down the, barriers. And it's like, we're our own barriers. We
Right.
are our own silos. Like, no one said that you can't talk to this other person. Like, we don't have to create these barriers. And So I just think like so often I encourage people like create your own stand up.
Hmm. Yeah.
There's no one stopping you, and so I encourage people in business. And I think that actually that's how leaders can kind of rise to the top, right? There's so many people that don't feel like, oh, I don't get these opportunities. And I'm like, you know what? You can grab your own opportunity and you will actually be seen as a leader for being the one that suggests, let's start meeting daily.
Right.
We're on the sales team and we never hear from the marketing team. We'll start a stand up,
Right.
so there are organizations that feel like they don't have this communication. There's nobody's stopping you, unless they are, I guess, but hopefully there's not.
Right. Well, and it is such a powerful thing to have that when you can realize, we're supposed to be here to support each other in a project, whatever that is. And it's
Yeah.
all, everything is like that. And even in personal life, it's still the same thing. It's like, okay, if you're struggling with something, reach out to your friends, ask for help. I mean, you and I are both in Success Champions. That's a place where we can ask for help from each other. And sometimes that help is, I'm just having a really bad day and I need to complain. That's okay. I think that this is some of the stuff. I think that for me personally, the most that I'm getting out of all of this is think differently, think in a way that's a better communication and breaking it down into smaller chunks so it's not so scary and it's not so ambiguous. And that's where a lot of times I see it in corporate a lot, but in small businesses, you run into the same thing because it's usually the owner operator that's got it all up here in their head, and then they try to start putting it out on other people, but they're not communicating it well enough, and then things fall apart, and that's where they go back to, well, nobody can do it like I can, I just need to do it all myself. And a lot of times it all just goes back to the communication.
Yeah. Lean on your
Yeah.
community. Like
Hmm.
we actually have communities here that I think are a lot more willing to support than we are willing to reach out and ask for. And
Hmm.
there
Yeah.
are so many amazing skills and people that really are open to being a part of our community. And it's how we think about community. It's actually how we've been defining community. It's just redefining it. So being open to that is what it's all about in my mind.
I love it. It is awesome. All right. Well, we are getting close to the time here. So we had a great conversation, but we're not going to have a 3-hour podcast. So just
Oh,
so you know. But I want to go ahead and wrap up with a couple things. First off, before I ask the final two questions, I got one more for you. If there is one action step above everything else that people should get out and do, what would that be?
oh gosh. For me, it is always about finding things that genuinely kind of push your boundary of like, I don't want to use the curiosity thing, but it's more about exploring things that just feel kind of interesting, right? And I don't mean, because I think that curiosity is like people just don't know how to really what to do with that.
Right.
It got thrown away, thrown around just in kind of a strange way, I think, and people don't necessarily know what to do with that. And so the way that I looked at it was, I'm somebody who likes to question everything, so that was easy for me to go, yeah, I'm curious, right? But instead, I guess if there's something that's interesting to you, or something that you haven't tried yet, and you want to be just creative, like start looking at people in a way that you're like, there's probably something that that person is doing that is a creation that I can take a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and if I show some excitement and appreciation, there is some really cool stuff that we can probably create. And that to me is what is exciting about the changes that are happening in the world. So we have AI, and rather than being afraid of it, think of it as the opportunity to create some amazing things.
Right. Very
So
cool.
take that
Love it.
action. Meet people.
Yep. All right. So final two questions. Last one will be the easy one. That's how can people get a hold of you? We'll go with that one in just a second. But this is the Meet Cool People show. So I'd love to hear your thought on what does Meet Cool People mean to you?
Well, meeting cool people to me means that we have the opportunity now more so than ever to be able to use the tools that are available to us to explore anything that we want and to be creative and to tap into all of ourselves, really do that self exploration to find unique talents around us and to just create, dream big, and go for it. Find those people, make the connections.
Awesome. Love it. All right. So last question. How can people get a hold of you?
I am very active on LinkedIn.
I can vouch for that one.
Yeah, I'm very, very active on LinkedIn. My website, executeyourintentions.com. And so my email address is also kinga@executeyourintentions.com.
Very cool. Awesome. So for everybody listening, definitely get connected with her. Go connect with her on LinkedIn and be sure to tell her that you found her because of the Meet Cool People podcast, but watch the stuff she's posting. I love watching the stuff that you post all the time. I really do. And I've commented on a bunch of it. I like pretty much everything that's on there. Anytime I see something, you're always sharing something cool and just the way you think. And is again, like I said at the beginning of the show, that's very much the same way that I think. So it's like you post something and I immediately like, okay, I dig this. I like that. So for everybody listening, get out there, go connect with Kinga. And with that said, I think we're at the end. So thank you, Kinga, for coming and hanging out today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, get out there, everybody. Have an amazing rest of the week. If there's anything I can do to help you out, reach out, let me know, and go out and meet some cool people.
Meet cool people.
And that wraps up another Meet Cool People show. Now, if you like what you heard, be sure to give us a like, subscribe, or review so I can help introduce these amazing cool people to even more amazing cool people. And just remember, meeting cool people is just the beginning. You need to have a system in place to follow up with the amazing people that you meet. This is exactly what we do for our clients. If you'd like to see if my team and I can help you, go to followuprockstar.com and check out the case study video to see exactly how we're helping our clients turn casual connections into cash clients for life. Again, go to followuprockstar.com and we'll see how we can work together to turn you into a follow-up rockstar.